Court. Hi, everybody. This is Ben Marchman with NatureLink. I want to welcome you to the FireKeepers Global Conference, in which we'll gather for powerful conversations with cutting-edge experts and thought leaders who will guide you to connect to your truest self and activate your natural gifts. This event is designed to reinstate the importance of carrying our soul-directed vision back into our communities so that ourselves and our communities will flourish. Here you're invited to learn how to seek the guidance of your inner voice so you can truly understand what it means to live life with purpose. I'm so excited to talk today with Katie Asmus. She is a body-centered, nature-based psychotherapist, a life coach, trainer of healers, and Rites of Passage guide. She founded and directs, the Somatic Wilderness Therapy Institute, formerly Namaste Healing Arts Center in Boulder, Colorado. Katie is passionate about connecting people to their inner wisdom and to the abundance of support that exists in the human and more than human world around us. Through supporting deep listening to the body, mind, spirit connection, guiding people to spend reflective time in nature, and offering ceremony and rites of passage, Katie supports people to come into greater alignment with their inner rhythms and deep inherent health. And Katie actually has a pretty extensive bio, and I'm gonna let her expound on the rest of her journey with that. But I'm just excited to talk to you today, Katie, about your topic, which is Everyday Sacred, Cultivating Connection to Self-Care, Ceremony, and Ritual in Modern Times. So welcome.
Thank you very much. So you invited me to expound, you said, on the bio, and I'm just thinking about kind of how what I do relates to this amazing summit that is about connecting people to their vision and to their soul purpose. And I was thinking about this before we got on the call about my own journey actually to really connecting with my soul purpose. And I remember back when I was 19, I was in college, and or 18, actually, it was my freshman year of college. And I got to school, and at that moment, I was a physical education major. And when I got to college, I looked around and I realized that when I had chosen my major, I thought, oh, there's education, there's communication, there's business. You know, there were like 5 things I could do. And once I got there, I realized, one, there was way more majors. And within all the majors, there were minors. And then I thought, wow, I bet there's something out there that I'm meant to do. And what if I don't even know it exists yet? And so in that moment, I decided that I am going to essentially listen to where my passion is at all moments and make decisions about what I'm doing, what I'm studying, etc., in relationship to that. And that if I did that, I would be led to what I wanted and needed and was called to do, versus if I made choices out of shoulds, right? What was the cultural or responsible thing, that I would end up in a place with training in something that I should do. And so from that point on, I lived primarily in that way, obviously did the things I needed to do also in life. But so that was when I was 18 or 19. And so fast forward, how many years? 7 years later, I had worked outdoor education. I had begun working in counseling psychology after my undergraduate degree, leading all sorts of outdoor courses. Went to graduate school then, and went to Naropa University to study holistic psychology, somatic psychology. And during my program, every time I had a opportunity to do a special project, I would do something with wilderness therapy or adventure therapy. So, created a group project for women in the wilderness, and did an internship with Outward Bound, working with people therapeutically, and wrote a thesis on wilderness therapy. And as I was graduating from my degree program, I said to my teacher, I have a dream to start a
Awesome.
wilderness therapy program in my life, or at some point. And she said, guess what? They already are starting one here at Naropa. It's been approved. And I said, great. I don't really want to create it. I just want to teach in it. So I called them up and said, hey, I'm a wilderness nature-based therapist. I've been doing this for a while. At this point, it was the first master's degree created in that work. So nobody else had one. And they said, great, why don't you come in and talk to us? And essentially I stepped in as the assistant director for the program just as it was beginning, which was also teaching. And at that moment, it was this full validation of that, all my passions coming together in a place that literally never existed before. And I happened to be in the right place, in the right time on the planet to be right there, to be able to step in. And it was amazing. It was really like the universe saying, yes, this is right. This is your purpose and calling. So that's been a huge part of what I've done. And then really there are a lot of threads that have come from there. I've taught graduate students in somatic psychology, in wilderness therapy, eco-psychology, adventure therapy for the last 18 years. And during that time began creating also trainings for professionals, for therapists, coaches, all sorts of healers, and incorporating the natural world into their work with others. And then a big thread is rites of passage work, ceremony, ritual, rites of passage work. And a lot of that has been woven actually throughout my whole life. Growing up, ceremony and ritual was a big thing for me. And then as I've been working out in the natural world, it's such a huge component of just my experience in that realm. And more recently have become really, really passionate about helping people create personally meaningful, culturally relevant ceremonies and rites of passage programs. And so that's a big part of the work that I've been doing with people. And then, so for this summit in particular, I'm so honored that you asked for me to come on and share a little bit. And as I looked at the themes and also kind of who were the other people that were going to be speaking and the work that they do, I really recognized that rites of passage and wilderness questing and relationship with the natural world, all of this is a really big component of what kind of the work that people are doing here and connecting with purpose through those means. So what I thought I would talk about a little bit more here today is sustainability of that, what is sometimes referred to as the care and feeding of our purpose. How do we really live in a sustainable way so that once we know what our soul's gifts are, our soul purpose is, or once we go out into the wilderness for an extended period of time and have a profound experience, like on a quest or something else, that really the work is bringing it into our bodies, bringing it into our life, making it, bringing it into the day-to-day. And that part of it isn't always exciting, right? The ceremony or the quest can be really profound and life-changing, but bringing it back into our lives, it's the chop wood, carry water, right? It's the mundane as well as the exciting and the sacred. And so really acknowledging that living our life purpose is, brings a whole other level of meaning to our own lives. And really it's ultimately to give to community, as we're talking about here. But that it takes, it's really the energy of the vision and the energy of the passion and the energy of the commitment that is also what fuels us in the day-to-day, in the doing the mundane, in the kind of one foot in front of the other, which is really what it often takes to bring a vision into fruition, which I'm sure having just created this huge project of sharing through this summit.
Yeah, and beautiful, like on two realms there, like how you wove your story into your work, and like literally the right time in the right place. And I love how your views on how you saw the summit and what you want to be bringing, because yeah, Rites of Passage can go in so many different realms, and the speakers here, of course, they're all over the place. If you're a viewer or a listener watching, there's a shaman, but right after the shaman, you might see an author that's a psychologist. Like they're just all over the place. And then there's priestesses, and then there's shamans. There's even there's a Catholic priest. There's a Hindu. I mean, there's religions in there to all this different views. But we're just here for this one vision, like you're saying, to really help people sustain this in their lives and find life purpose. Yeah. And I'm glad you're resonating with that. And one question before we dive into your talk, if you don't mind, Katie. Is some viewers and listeners might be wondering, I've done this before, whenever I've mentioned this word, like really what the word somatic actually means. Sometimes most people on this summit that are watching or listening to the audio will probably know what that means, but there might be some that are just watching these videos that might not. And sometimes people hear that word and they get confused, and the person's just going on and on. They have to figure out eventually what that means. So I want to see what your take was on that, like how you bring somatic work into what you do, but also like what really is somatic.
Great question. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, so somatic comes from the word soma, which comes from the Greek, meaning soma means body. And so I think of somatic as really being of the body or incorporating the body. And so I talked about being trained as a somatic psychotherapist. And what that means in particular is really that everything we do, we're looking at the body-mind connection, and that the body and the mind, and I would even say the body, mind, and spirit, but are inextricably connected. And so in the work of somatic therapy, we're really incorporating very explicitly the wisdom of the body and awareness of what's happening on a sensation level, on an emotion level, to give us information about what's going on, but also to really support our innate health and wholeness. And in somatic therapy, we're really looking at health as flow through our physiology, flow through our emotionality, or in our spirituality, and sort of challenge as stopping that flow. And so we're really, when we incorporate the body, looking at how do we invite in the wisdom, invite in the resource of that toward our wholeness, and ultimately toward our sense of flow and aliveness in the world.
Beautiful.
And it can look so many different ways, really. Yeah.
And a lot of people always think it's like a new field. They're like, oh, is that a new field of work? I'm like, no, we've been doing this. Humans have been doing this for a while.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, I started graduate school in 1997. And back then there really wasn't a lot of research. It was kind of like eco psychology and wilderness and adventure therapy. It was a body of work that really rose out of experience and out of people in many different places simultaneously saying, oh my goodness, there's something really powerful here, and really kind of began through people doing massage therapy, dance, all sorts of somatic, kind of body experiences, who are noticing that their students were having a lot of emotion or memories coming up or spontaneous healing, and saying, whoa, there's something really powerful about this. And many of them saying, and I need more training because something's happening here that I wasn't expecting. And how do we really help people integrate this more? And so that kind of evolved into a field, or sort of one aspect of the healing field of incorporating it with counseling. And but since then, I said, I started in 97. People still said, oh, this is really, there's not a lot of research, and what is this field of, what's behind this? And today, 23 years later, it is, there's a lot of research. Bessel van der Kolk, someone in the US who has created an institute and put tons of time and energy and money into researching it. We have all the brain studies now that are really showing the value of this work of mindfulness, of somatic awareness, et cetera, and how it actually changes the brain and, changes our physiology. So it's actually super exciting.
Yeah. Your face lights up talking about it. So I love it that you're so enthusiastic with this. So even people that probably don't know about them, I hope they're getting excited about it too. And just looking at your topic too, like this is the part of where it says everyday sacred, and what that means for our listeners or the viewers. And I just wanted to know if you want to expound on like the question, which is like, tell us how that relates to tell us how the world and maybe yourself and your work relates to the topic of everyday sacred.
Yes, great. So, I think about when we look at living our soul's purpose, we're really looking at committing ourselves and our life to something that really has meaning. And for me, that is the definition of sacred. Sometimes, for some people, sacred includes spirit or God or something beyond ourselves. And whether that's a part of it or not, there's a sense of the sacred, which I had a student once, we were discussing, what does this mean to you? And she said, something so important that you would fall down to the ground and weep, or that you would be willing to give up big things in your life to stand for. And so when I think about really living a life on purpose, that's soul-based, that's vision-driven, first of all, there really inherently in that for me is a connection to the sacred. And then, like I said earlier, in that living of the vision, living of purpose, there's a lot of mundane, right? There really is the emails to, respond to people, and the depositing the checks, and the cooking the food so that we can nourish our bodies, so that we can do our vision. And really, how do we really intentionally stay connected to the vision, stay connected to the sacred every day, in the small ways as well as in the big ways. So that's really one of the things I want to sort of look at here today and encourage people to consider, because our bodies are our vessels here as we live our purpose in the world. And it's so important, I think, it can be easy as healers to give and serve. And it's just as important to really make sure that we are taking care of us and serving ourselves, not out of a place of ego, but really out of a place of taking care of our own instrument, also taking care of our own alignment, so that we have energy and clarity and even appropriate boundaries as we are serving and offering our medicine. So really looking at, the importance and what are the ways that we do and can intentionally cultivate the sacred and acknowledge the small sacred moments each day.
Wonderful. And like acknowledging, just going back to what you're saying, like acknowledging and cultivating that connection. I think there's so many of us that look at self-care in so many different ways. And when we hear those words, ceremony and ritual, like it's almost like half of the culture hears those words and it's like really confused, and I don't really know what that means. Like, oh, I have to be religious to do that. That's a religious ceremony. I can't be. And like, no, that ceremony just means an event where you're
Yeah.
marking, and it means to me that it's just another word for intention. It's
Yeah.
a sacred intention.
Mhm.
And we always get confused with what those two words actually mean, ritual and ceremony. And
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't mind saying a few things because I think
sure.
this is another area that I've been done a lot of work with my whole life, but in the last 20 plus years, I like did some projects even in graduate school and have taught courses on this. And one of the things that I found when I looked at the literature is those words are actually ceremony, the word ceremony and the word ritual are used differently depending on the traditions that they're coming out of. So I'll just say the way that I use them because so that it makes sense how I'm speaking about them, which I'll say this isn't like the definition. So I think about rituals as the things that we do over and over again for some particular intention. And, that could be, so I think about, like I grew up Catholic, going to Catholic church. And so what I know, at least from that tradition, is within the mass, which I would consider more of sort of the ceremony, there are many rituals. So, you walk up the into the church in a particular way and bless yourself in a particular way and say a particular prayer every time. So the things that we do over and over and over. And another example from a non-religious perspective would be one of my morning rituals is I get up and I boil water and I make myself some tea, and there's an intention for that. It's not spiritual, but what it is I am not a morning person, and when I wake up I can't really think. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing? And so I've developed this ritual that I've now literally had for probably 15 years of doing this first thing. And by the time I get through that, I'm more in my body, my mind is more awake, and then I can say, okay, what am I doing next? So again, something that we're doing over and over for a particular intention. And then I think about ceremony as generally an action, or more often a set of actions done intentionally in support of a particular intention. So I'm using the word intention quite a lot there. But and generally there is, when we look at Rite of Passage, a ceremony could be something for letting go, that could be the intention. It could be celebrating. It could be acknowledging something, asking a question, beginning a new role, etc. So just looking at kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about today, ceremony and ritual.
Yeah, I'm glad you went back and explained that. That was kind of the question I was leading to was like, yeah, can you explain that? So I'm glad you caught me on that. And yeah, and a lot of people, they get confused and like, oh, what's the difference between that and a routine? And like, you can build routines inside of a ritual. It's just like one of those questions that can be answered in so many different ways. And I guess that kind of leads to to that question that I was going to ask about those, which was like, the summit, and what you and I are talking about today is like, purpose and sustaining that. And so like, how can the practices of, self-care, ceremony, and ritual not only support one's connection to themselves, but also to the purpose, or even maybe, the vision they might have for their community?
Yeah. So as you ask that, I just think about really the importance again that I mentioned of it's a way of nourishing ourselves, or looking at what are the ways. So the ways might be the rituals. What are the ways that we habitually or maybe often nourish ourselves so that we can live our vision? So, really looking at everywhere from, what is the food that we're eating? How are we sleeping? How are we sustaining our physical bodies? And then also there's the whole component of how do we stay connected clearly to our vision? And there are so many ways to do that, right? There are meditation or prayer practices. There are ways of sitting in community or connecting others with others that have a similar kind of value or vision. There's also, there might be daily practices of journaling or daily practices of gratitude, something that really brings us into a place of more quiet and listening and really allowing what is important to flow through us. Because I think especially in this day and age, we're so busy. I'm busy, you know, we are busy, and we have so much technology and so many ways of communicating that we're keeping up with. And honestly, I think with all of that, you know, the intention has been ease, but it's really added a lot of management to our plates. So I feel like the modern world in the US anyway, is not promoting slowing down and pausing and being quiet and connecting with vision. And so in my experience, you know, with myself and what I see and the people that I interact with, I feel like more and more, it's so important to really intentionally create that space for ourselves. Also, I think in the US, you know, it's a country that has been, you know, people from all different countries have moved here and, you know, even moved the indigenous people off their land. I mean, that's a whole huge topic we could go into, but what I'm pointing to in this moment is that because of this, that we don't have a lot of shared ceremony and ritual. You know, we have birthdays, but even not every culture celebrates birthdays. You know, we don't all come from the same culture, and we don't originally. And so it's not an integral part of kind of the way we live or the agreements we have. And so given all of that, again, as one that lives and has an intention to live from purpose and from vision, it feels so necessary to really make the time and space and intention to do that. And as I say that, I'll just share, you know, I love life and I get very excited about all the things. I want to do all the things. I get ideas and I want to create them, and I want to, you know, connect with the communities that are doing the things that I love, and I want to get to know other people and hear what they're doing. And so for me, it's been a really important thing to put, you know, self-care at the forefront and say, actually having boundaries around doing and having moments to slow down are super important. And that said, you know, I think one of the things I often say in my therapy and coaching with people is I say, know yourself and your own habits and ways of being. And then from that place, set yourself up for success. So for instance, like my husband, he is impeccable at creating habits and doing them day after day after day for years. He does not need any support in that. You know, for me, I know I get distracted very easily by this cool article or this other thing, you know, whatever it is. And so for me, often what I'll do is make dates with friends to go meditate, make dates with friends to sit and counsel, make dates with friends to meet to do a dance practice. So even though it's a practice that I'm really listening internally or creating, you know, daily or weekly practices of this, it really helps me to have a commitment to somebody else. So this can look so many different ways. And I think it's one, valuing this and really getting the need, you know, because again, I just feel like it can be so easy to see the need out there and say, there's no time here. You know, there's so much that needs to be done out there, but to really get the importance of sustainability. And then from that place, everybody's going to be different, finding what it is for you that would be nourishing.
Yeah. I'm just smiling because I can definitely relate to that. It seems like our lives are really similar. My wife's very good at the structured piece, and like, as viewers who are watching all these videos, you can probably tell, like, you and I are both very passionate in this work, and we can get so drawn in. So it has to be sustained over time. And I like how you build counsel and ritual into your everyday life, because that's so important. But it's also something that's been ingrained in us and what we all used to do. Like a ceremony with, you're marking something, but the ceremony and ritual, it has to be done and witnessed. And that's the part of that intentional piece, witness with somebody's intention to be witnessed. Yes. And I think that's what's so important. And what you're kind of saying is like, some of these rituals and ceremonies that we do throughout our lives, they lose the traction, like you're saying, because you might not have a community supporting you, or they might not know what your intention is.
Right. Yes.
So that's so important. Like those two words, that a lot of people forget that those two words need to be like almost like together.
Yes.
So somebody could have an amazing ritual that they're doing over and over again, or like something that's really sacred to them. They want everybody to know what they're trying to do. Maybe it can be like, hold a ceremony to show everybody what your gifts are that you want to share in your community, or it could be just an event that you want to show to your coworkers. That's like so important, but you want to do it like in a sacred space. But if no one knows like why you're doing it, then it would just kind of be that was weird. Like Gary and software just wants us to be doing this thing, but we don't know why he's doing it, because they might not, feel involved with the process. So I love how you kept mentioning that word intention and how it leads into that. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, and, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about the role of community here, right? Mm-hmm. And just thinking about, I think there's a way, again, with the way that I'm talking about ceremony and ritual, I think there's a way that my own ritual, like I don't necessarily need that to be witnessed, but if I'm doing ceremony, there's something about, first, inherently, especially in the world of wilderness quest and rite of passage, we really talk about that going out on the land, going out to find your gifts is not for ourselves. It's really so that we can bring them back and live them in our community. And really, by virtue of being more of ourselves and more connected to our gifts, that we are emanating that. We are living that. We are offering it as a gift to others. And so, a lot of times in ceremony, when I help people create them, I ask them really explicit, who do you want to be involved? Which could be, who do you want to know you're doing this ceremony? What do you want them to know about it? Who do you want to be there? Or do you want people to be involved peripherally, and or sometimes based on the circumstances or the intention? The witnessers might be the trees, might be the natural world. But there's something, again, really important about both acknowledging the role of community in that what we are doing is really for the people and is inextricably connected to our relationship with others. But also, as we're stepping into greater intention, it's so important, one, for the power of how it lives in our own bodies, to have witnessers in some way, because it really ups the energy and the accountability, really, of what we're stepping into or saying yes to, and during the yes, and then after, for people to be able to check back in and say, hey, you committed to this thing. How is that going? Or how is that unfolding in your life? That all of this is so much more powerful as we add energy through the support or acknowledgement or witnessing of community. And again, ultimately, that is who's being impacted as well.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the whole concept of the summit too. You know, like, dude, here's somebody like you presenting your purpose, your gifts, and our community coming together to witness and to be leveraging you. But the way that works is like, you know, we're like a vessel, like you're saying, like, you know, it's not just about us. There's a whole other community involved in this. It's like this, and this reflecting back on this story that John Young told us a long time ago about, like, you know, this, you know, the Assam Bushman community, like these interconnected communities that are still out there that are so connected in this world. And asking like the little children, like, who do you have to talk to and pour your heart out to and all your questions to every day? And like, if you ask that to somebody now, that would be like, oh, like my brother or my dad or my best friend. It'll be like, we need you one or handful of people.
Or no one.
Or no one. Yeah, right now, most of the time, no one for some people. And this little child turns around and he's like, oh, like I have about 30 and 30 to 40 uncles and aunts. Because, like, you know, they're not all relatives, but they call them uncles and aunts that they can talk to. And like, that's huge. Like, to have all those mentors out there, people you can like I'm gonna go to ask this person this question because I know like they'll know more about this question, or like, so that this mentoring kind of cultures that we need to be creating behind these gifts is so important. And that's why cultures like that have not changed, and that's a good thing. And that's why they're so connected. And so if we look at that from like an American point of view, like, oh, that's weird, they're so primitive. I'm like, well, I mean, they're the happiest and connected people on this planet right now. So I wonder what that means.
Oh my gosh, right. If you look at that, have you seen the studies of like the happiest country and the least, like,
yeah.
I think the US is 147th or something like that on the happiness scale. And oh my goodness. Yeah. More does not mean better. More does not mean happier, for sure.
And this conversation kind of came up with another speaker, but just the whole thing that you're presenting and we're talking about is like, you know, you have to be seen and witnessed. Like, a lot of people like don't know what that open communication looks like, but when it's held in a ceremony in a sacred space and it's in nature, that's elevated. Yeah. And that's so important. Because the nature is carrying that huge spiritual wholeness piece that's usually missing.
Yes.
That's something powerful to say to a group of people, and it might be in a cubicle, and it can be a really cool event, but it might not hit home because of the space. It might not just hold that sacredness to it.
Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't take much, but I think we, again, culturally, because we don't have a lot of shared ceremonies, and people are so independent in a lot of ways, this meaning making or intentionally marking big transitions doesn't happen. There's a book that I love, and I've had many of my classes and students read it, that's called Transitions by William Bridges. It was written several decades ago. I think they have, they have like an updated version of it. It's a very thin book. He's a psychologist, but he basically writes about life transition through the lens of the Rite of Passage model. And I always remember the story that he talked about one of his clients that he was working with who got a promotion, and he, was really excited about it. But after several months became more and more depressed. And when William Bridges unpacked it with him, what he found was, so he had, this great new title and more money, but what happened was he wasn't seeing his family as much. He was working more hours. His coworkers who used to be his peers, he was now supervising. So there was this change in power and relationship, and there was conflict around that. And what he really talked about was, whoa, when we step into something new or greater, there's a loss. there's things that we're leaving behind. And if we forget to acknowledge that, if we don't grieve what has been good and honor, praise, grieve as we let go, we don't have the space to step into the new. And so often when I'm sitting with clients and they are telling me about a transition, anything from moving to graduating, to having a baby, to coming out of a deep depression, to, it's like whatever the new life change, ending a job, I'll say, do you want to do a ceremony around that? And sometimes we'll just do it spontaneously right there. And other times I'll have them plan it, but really just to kind of pause and honor what is, right? Honor what has been, the good, and as well as, the gratitude for what they're letting go of and the hopes for stepping in. And I feel like it makes a difference just to honor that something is really important like that.
Yeah, what a cool way to tie that in. I love what you're saying there. And like, yeah, honoring, what I'm hearing too is like honoring, like letting go of the ego, which is so hard for us to do, because once you're letting go of that, that's when the soul comes in and like the deeper work. And letting people know that letting go it's not bad. It can be, a hard transition, and it sounds really scary. And it can be you're transitioning something really good from something bad, but to honor that that's still okay. Yeah. And that your whole life is actually transitioning. Like we're all this part of this big constant transition. One of my friends, he's a psychologist. He was like, when you have all these multiple transitions, did you know that he's like one of those did you know kind of things. When you have all these multiple transitions together, you're the thing that you will change, but your change will not be long lasting, which means like when you're constantly transitioning and you're working to something, it sounds like you're on a big change. It could be, but it's definitely not going to be long lasting because you haven't marked any of those transitions.
Right. Yes. And in the wilderness quest model that I work with, we talk about the ceremony being a year long, right? Because you do the thing, you do the ceremony. I think of many ceremonies as, in alignment with that, but then it takes months or year or years to really bring it into your body, bring it into your cells, live out whatever that transition is going to be.
Exactly. Like same as in our work at Nature Link, people are like, why is your application linked for 2 years down the road? And like, you ask them that one question and I was like, well, what's calling you to do the quest? Like, I don't know. I'm like, well, it's going to take you a year to probably figure out that answer. And then when you have your answer, you can show up.
Yes. Yes.
Because, that's a big commitment. Like you were saying, it's a process and it's going to take a year, but also after your ceremony, your quest, you will have some sort of transformation, and, it might not be big or small, that doesn't matter, but what you're going to be integrating after that, that's the whole rest of your life.
Right.
That experience is just marking a stage, but you have the whole rest of your life to integrate that. It's not just like, oh, I have a week,
right.
Which is so amazing with this work that you're doing as well.
Right. Well, and as you say that, I think that's another reason why the daily rituals are so important in the self-care, because when we come out of a really big experience, so much of it is, it's not cognitive, right? It's not linear. We kind of come out and go, what happened? And I don't even have words for it. Or, whoa, I was able to slow down and listen, or have this aha. And so, really looking at, and it's one of the things that I do with people after Rites of Passage work is, can feel sometimes annoying, like, I don't want to get specific or in my head, but it's like, okay, let's get specific. Like what practices can you start doing, or what are you going to commit? What actions are you going to commit to really keep remembering, re-embodying this thing that you discovered or found out there? And that's really one of the ways that can be supportive. Yeah,
definitely. We're kind of getting to the top of the hour, but we still got a little bit of time.
There's one other
If you
thing I
want,
actually wanted to add about
yeah,
community.
'cause I was going to dive into another
Yeah.
rabbit hole here, but I wanted to make sure we're covered with that piece. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So just one other piece that I think is really critical that I want to say here is, you know, in relationship to how community is supportive, is especially if we, as we are leaders, you know, those of us who are leaders and stepping into guiding others and being in positions of power in whatever way that might be, as a teacher, as a leader, etc. One of the pieces that's super important is really being available and open to feedback. And like you mentioned, from mentors or peers, and really be open and available to hear our impact and hear, you know, how are things landing and being perceived in what we're creating, because it really helps us to take it out of the ego, right? It's like, this is, you know, this is my vision, this is my gift. And really continuing to listen, is this what's needed? You know, is this serving? And so just the importance of those who will be honest with us and love us and hold us accountable and support us as we are living and serving our visions.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like you were saying earlier, it's not just serving me, it's serving others. So asking that question, like, how is this helping me serve others? Like, and like, because we're in, like, you know, as you're kind of casually mentioned earlier, like, we're in this like culture where it's me, and like what I'm taking away from this is me. And like in this ceremonial work, like, it's not really about you. Sorry. This is for you, your community.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
once people start really getting that mindset, then you start seeing the community start seeing you, because
Mm-hmm.
you're carrying something bigger and that wholesome piece.
Mm-hmm. And when we do enough self-care, when we have our needs, our basic needs met, we have a lot more space to serve, right? It's really, and when we're not meeting our own needs or getting them met on a fundamental level, that things get confused around how we're getting our needs met and all of that. So again, just saying, as a leader especially, it's so important to really take care of ourselves so that we can more clearly love and serve.
Yeah, and with intention.
Exactly. Yeah.
um, and yeah, I kind of had like one summarizing question before the end here, and
Yeah.
then we want to actually kind of had two big questions, but I think we still have a little bit of time. And to be honest, I probably had like 50 more questions, but you and I could talk for a while. And so, like, your advice and your wisdom behind this, I was wondering if you want to give us like any, could be like through a story or like personal rituals that you yourself are kind of working on, or maybe with clients that can help paint a picture behind like how people can really actually engage in this daily work and sustain it.
Yeah.
Not touch base at the beginning, but kind of interweaving that back in.
Great. So let's see. I mean, I can share some for myself that I do. One is when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do before I get out of bed, you know, I learned that our unconscious mind is more available at that time. And so I will say, this is interesting. I will, because I'm not sure who this comes from, a particular tradition, but I learned it through the movie The Secret, which is speaking from this statement, I have always been blank today. So I really set the tone of my day and go through, just, it's different each day. You know, often there's something like, I have always been grounded today. I have always been connected to my center and my own inner voice today. I have always lived in the field of love today. And so I kind of go through that right when I wake up, just to sort of set my tone. I shared about my morning tea ritual. And then when I work with clients, I go to my office and generally what I do is take a few moments, I light a candle, I really call in my support, that which is beyond me, that is in the highest good and support of me as well as my clients, and set the tone in that way. And then at the beginning of each of my client sessions, I always begin with some sort of grounding, body awareness, intention setting with them to help them really kind of shift gears from wherever they came from and whatever it took to get there, and really feeling their own breath and body, and allowing to really just float up what has importance to them. So those are some of the kind of daily or common rituals that I like to do. I also know for myself, it's not as ceremonial, but regular exercise is super important for me, just to feel, have energy and feel good. So exercise. And the other one is journaling. I'm a verbal processor. Also, it helps to write. So there's something about getting the words out that really helps me get in touch with what has meaning and what's true, and stay current with that. So those are some common ones that I do.
Yeah, I like that. And I guess for the community piece too is for the listeners and the viewers is like, don't be scared to show your ritual to others. But and I just want to see what your point would be on that, because those others could be maybe people that you choose that don't have that judgment, or like don't want to be that aren't judgmental of your ritual, because that can be get us back into that mindset of like, oh, maybe I should be doing like, this is your ritual.
Yeah.
So like I think that's an important piece. We're in this like kind of like how we were just saying, like in this society, like we think what we're doing is really good, but then we have that one person that might say like, oh, that's silly, and so like really surrounding yourself around the right people who will really support you in this self-care. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, and I think really about sharing it with others, looking at will this be in service or not, right? Whether that's in service of me and honoring whatever it is that I'm doing, and or in service of them, and or am I in a place where I'm just gonna somebody told me about how they were doing yoga in the airport, doing a headstand because they're about to get on a plane, and it's like, maybe nobody else is doing that and people are going to think I'm weird, but that's okay, because this is super important to self-care, really, and might pique people's curiosity or willingness to do something that people might think is weird in support of their own health and wellness. So yeah, I think that's a good consideration there.
Yeah, I like that example. Well, we're kind of at the top of the hour, but I just wanted to see if you wanted to sum it up with like any advice or guidance, words of wisdom, whatever you feel called to talk about, something we missed.
Oh my goodness. I think I definitely covered the key points that I was thinking about, and even probably reiterated the most important ones several times, which I'll just say again, I feel like the world needs your vision. The world needs our vision, and that each one of us is born with a really unique gift or way of giving that will not exist through any other experience in time. And so, obviously there's the whole process, which I know other people are speaking to, around how do we even find that and acknowledge it and believe in it and commit to it. And then as we're doing that, which is a whole process, maybe even a lifelong process, because it also, the way that we serve and the iterations of that evolve and change over time. But through all of it, I would definitely encourage people to really find your ways of self-care and of cultivating deep listening for yourselves, so that you can really be sustainable in your love and your giving and your serving in the world, and that it really is, it's a long game, you know, it's not the short game, it's the long game. And so how do we nourish that? Again, not from a place of selfish, but it's like, yes, we need to do this first so that we can then have energy and space to serve.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that piece. Well, we have one more piece left, and I guess that's your free gift. Did you want to talk about your free gift?
Yeah. And so there'll be through the
on the website on your for the viewers and listeners, that next to Katie's picture and right below her bio will be like the free gift link URL.
Okay, perfect. And that will be a self-care and daily ritual reflection and action guide. And so what that is really, I created a guide for people and some questions to consider about what they're already doing, what they're wanting to do, and just some other ways that they might incorporate self-care. And also like the piece about set yourself up for success. Are there other ways that you might, you know, bring in support so that you follow through with that? So that's the gift that I'm offering here. And if you mention that you saw this here, then I'm also offering 10% off one training for healers in nature-based work or Rite of Passage program during 2020.
Awesome. Those are some big gifts. I like them. I'll do both of those. So
Okay, fabulous.
Saw you here.
Great. And is my website, will that be linked here, or should I share my website?
Yeah. And you can share your website, but it will be linked. You're welcome to do that.
Great. So it's www.wilderness-therapy-institute.com, and it's the Somatic Wilderness Therapy Institute, but the website's wilderness-therapy-institute.com. And so all of the trainings and Rites of Passage programs will be on there for if that's something you want to check out or join.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Katie's programs. They're very inspiring. I've always wanted to make it out to one, but her and I always are talking a lot, but I never come out to her programs, but I would definitely go out.
You get to experience me teaching a little bit, a couple days recently.
Yeah, I did. It was unbelievable. And so y'all need to go check out Katie and her work.
Thank you.
And you're so welcome. And thank you so much for coming on. This has been really fun talking to you. I'm surprised we stayed within our time frame. A lot of you and listeners don't know, Katie is a big inspiration for me, and a teacher, mentor as well. So I think we did actually a pretty good job with that. But thank you so much, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. So good to be here. Good luck with your whole summer.
And have fun in Mexico. A lot of us don't know she's in Mexico right now. Pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, take care and many blessings and safe travels.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.